Hello there, my name is Stephen Colburn from Brunswick Secondary College, where I'm an acting LT of Assessment and Reporting, a literacy improvement teacher, and I teach English, History, EAL and Literacy there. So today we'll be talking about instructional video for teachers and for students, and I'll be exposing you to the tool FlipGrid and getting you to use that to explore a very simple, basic entry-level form of video for your students, or to get your students to produce some. So with that in mind, our learning intention is basically to make you aware of some of the research behind instructional video and to get you to engage with creating your own video, which will be the success criteria. So just before we jump in, we've got three definitions. Instructional video is just that, videos for the purposes of instruction. Flip learning is using those videos to get your students to do what is normally considered homework at home. And then to free up the class time so you can do more innovative and interesting things. I'm hoping with the video you produced today that you can try out, at least maybe for once, just a little bit of this concept, so you might remove some part of your direct teaching into a video, and then that will allow you more time to spend with your students and interact with them in interesting ways. Then the third is blended learning, which is all the rage at the moment, and that involves online learning, video-based content and face-to-face. And so you can't do any of these second or third objects without doing the first. So that's what I'm going to try and upskill you in today. And we're using something called the TPAC model, which is pedagogy, content and curriculum knowledge, content knowledge. So you already have the pedagogical skill and the content knowledge, and I'm just trying to upskill you a little bit in the technological aspects and the how and the why of doing so. So why instructional video? Basically, it's more accessible, it's a superior product learning object than worksheets and a whole range of other things. It allows you to duplicate yourself, and it saves you having to repeat things that you repeat perhaps every day or every week or every month or 2 or 3 times a year. So just looking at theory for a little bit, there's Swaller's cognitive load theory, Swaller and Kirshner's cognitive load theory, the 3 boxes on the right hand side. And then the one on the left here is what we call multimedia learning theory, which is basically by Mayer, which is essentially that students, the sum of audio and sound, the sum of audio and image together through a multimodal video product is superior to what you would get through sound and just looking at something, as well as those two things combined. So with that in mind, just to sum it up, this is a number of different studies have told us this, but video is superior to worksheets, it's superior to PowerPoint slides, it's superior to PowerPoint slides with audio, and it's superior to PowerPoint slides with audio and a little animated agent explaining and pointing things out. So now what we're going to do is a quick survey of where we're all at as a group. So you can do this if you are online just as well as if you are offline. And what I'd like you to tell me is, have you recorded audio of yourself? Generally, have you recorded audio of yourself for teaching purposes or none of the above? Then, have you filmed yourself? Have you filmed yourself for teaching purposes? Have you recorded a screencast, or none of the above, or none of the above, which I've repeated twice and I should fix? So this gives me a bit of a picture of whether it's a skill set issue or a mindset issue. So if you've already done this before, you already have the skill set. We'll talk about tools in a moment, but you already have the skill set, and whether or not you have the mindset is a separate thing. So have you decided that using film of yourself for teaching is worth doing? Obviously there's some issues around, confidence, and the feeling of filming yourself is probably something that you're not necessarily entirely comfortable with yet, but that's something that you can work on if you think it's worth doing. So at this point, if you've already done, you were one of the few people who've done all the audio, all the video things, you can follow that link and you can watch the video I did a couple of weeks ago to a different audience, which is more setting out the types of video and a little bit more detail on the research. We'll be skimming over that mostly so we can get stuck in and have an attempt now. And then just here are 2 video examples of the way that my video making has progressed. And the reason that it has progressed is because I realized 4 years ago that producing videos of me teaching would mean that I'd never have to teach those content areas in exactly the same way every year over and over again ad infinitum, forever. So that's why I've done it, and I think that's also why you would benefit from it, as well as all teachers, I believe. So at this point we're going to pause. You've got a sheet in front of you, a little booklet, and it's going to take you through thinking about what technology you already have, and think about what technology you might be able to access for a school you're attached to or a school that you visit, and then this will help to inform how ready and how prepared you are technology-wise to actually produce the video content that we'll be talking about in a moment. So workflow, pre-production is not a thing because you're a teacher and you already know what you're teaching, I hope, or you're working on it as you go. Then we've got production, so filming, we'll do some of that today. You can get it done in 5 minutes quite easily. Then you've got the optional product of editing. Again, we'll avoid that today. I'll touch on it very briefly in a moment about how it works and what you can do if you choose to do so. But basically, if you get stuck, pause, start again. If you've stuffed it up completely, or just pause the actual filming of the video and then continue when you feel like you've regained your thoughts and you're ready to continue and add on to the existing piece that you've already made. Then finally there's publication, and we probably won't get to that step today, but you will produce a video and you'll be able to download it onto your phone, and then if you like, perhaps in the second session we'll talk about uploading, where it can go, what sort of features you might want enabled or not enabled in terms of privacy, student access and so forth. So as mentioned briefly, these are 3 programs I would suggest you use for editing if you are considering it. Premiere Pro is expensive, Camtasia is also expensive, Adobe Spark is free, so you can use it in your phone in very much the same way we're using FlipGrid, with a couple more bells and whistles. But in short, editing as in a whole nother step to the process, which I'm familiar with doing, but that's a separate skill set that I had to teach myself as I decided it was worth doing. For you personally, that'll be a long way down the track, maybe 3 or 4 years from now. If you consistently use video, you might start to think, okay, it's time to start editing and really polishing up what I've done. So the focus of this session is FlipGrid. Why do you use it? I use it personally for students, so it gives me access to, and them access to me, outside of hours, and it allows me to give the sort of specialised one-to-one attention that certain students need. For me, those are EAL students, special select entry SEAL students we call them at my school, but basically the very high and the very low need intervention, and that's not always possible in situ in your classroom because you're busy doing the job of a teacher, or in your case the job of a replacement teacher, which is perhaps a lot harder, dealing with behaviour and so forth. It's also good, I think, I use it with professionals, adults, teachers, so I would obviously not add the section of images of my students, but trust me that I've used it with them. They find it very useful to improve, and they also use it for asynchronous discussion, so they're talking as they're going. This is an example of we're an academic reading group, and we read educational academic literature, and we share via video all across the world using FlipGrid. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what is possible and what can be done with FlipGrid. We'll be using it in a relatively limited way, in the sense that we are all in a room currently, or some of us are online, but yet we're using this as a communication tool to amplify that and make it more powerful. So what we're going to do first, you're going to introduce yourself via video. These are the links. Basically, follow that link or use the QR code by taking a photo of the screen. You don't need a QR reader, you just take a photo and your device will work out what that means. Then you log in using a Microsoft or a Google account, and then finally you press the plus button, and when you've done that and we can see that you've got a video page like the one pictured here on the slide, once we can see that, you're welcome to leave the room, find somewhere in the building that's quiet so that you can introduce yourself to the group via video, and then once you've done that, come back and we'll resurface and we'll try and get ourselves into groups to talk about producing our first instructional video, which is where the rubber hits the road. Alright, so now you've returned. You might be early, you might be by yourself. What I'd love you to do is flip to the back page of your booklet and go through the sorts of suggestions that I've provided about making your own video. And once we have a quorum, I'll get you to pair up, make small groups. If you're online, obviously you're doing it by yourself, but again, you can access using the QR code link here on the screen. And with your partner, you'll be making an instructional video. So the link that you'll be following has a 5-minute limit, and that's purposeful. 5 minutes is round about the right time. If you go over that, you're probably waffling and you're not necessarily explaining one core concept. So what I want you to do is think of something that will be evergreen, you can teach forever, or a routine, a skill, maybe a behavioural expectation that you have that you might use to instruct your class or catch students up who've been away and so forth. But essentially, group up with a partner, you'll have a full 15 minutes, 5 minutes discussion preparation, 5 minutes shooting and editing, finalising, and then 5 minutes to publish, look at examples and sort of go through the workflow that I described. Okay, so at this point you have the FlipGrid process down pat, I hope. You've worked out how to access it, how to use it, what devices you can use, how to maximise sound quality, you've posted a selfie, you've met some other people, all those sort of things. At this point, you're working with a partner to create an actual video. So find a partner, 5 minutes planning, 5 minutes shooting, 5 minutes looking at other examples and sharing what you've done with others, and then we'll bring it all back together and we'll close from there. Alright, thank you for attending this conference and my session in particular. The second session will be a lot more advanced. We'll do some screencasting stuff, which is essentially, I'll show you the technology in the program we use that means you can record anything on your screen. So you can teach other people how to use FlipGrid, for example. You could, essentially, it's a limitless possibility. You could do and record anything that exists on your computer, and so that obviously maximizes your potential to explain things to students more easily, especially IT things, or to other staff members. And I guess you can imagine how sort of those sort of skill sets and that sort of technology would unlock certain possibilities for you in your teaching and your career more broadly. So thank you again.